Presumptive conditions make the VA claim process a lot more straightforward. Hey, I am Chuck the Bureaucrat, and today I want to talk to you about presumptive conditions. And this is a concept that has to do with the Veterans Administration's disability claim process. Normally, when a transitioning service member or veteran submits a claim to the VA, they have to prove three things. They have to demonstrate that a condition, either an illness or an injury, exists. Number two, they have to show that the condition occurred or was aggravated while on military duty. And number three, they have to prove that there is a medical connection between the condition and the military service. Showing this connection between a condition and military service can be particularly difficult when the condition emerges years after someone is out of the military. And so, over the years, Congress and the Veterans Administration have identified a set of conditions that are presumed to be connected to military service. That is, the service member has a condition, so they meet number one, and they performed duties at a certain time and place, so they've got number two. And then the condition is just assumed to be service-connected. Now, the earliest examples of these presumptive conditions date all the way back to 1921. This is when Congress shifted the burden of proof for certain tubercular diseases and neuropsychiatric diseases from the service member to the government. And one of my particular favorite quotes comes from Senator David Walsh, who said at the time, "In my opinion, that provision of the law that places the burden upon the disabled veteran for connecting his disease with his service has been responsible for more complaints, dissatisfaction, and disappointment than any other single provision." And so that gets to the heart of this idea of a presumptive condition. It reduces the amount of independent judgment that has to be applied by people responsible for rating VA claims. It lowers the variability that two veterans might experience when submitting identical packets. And it should speed up the claim process, particularly for complex claims. Now, there are a lot of presumptive conditions and a lot of different service times and locations associated with them. If you want to see them all, you got to go to the VA website. Instead, I just want to skip to the real so what here. The way the VA website is set up kind of works like this. It's organized around conditions and their associated exposure. Then, when you drill into this, they list specific presumptive conditions and then they list the associated service. I think that's backwards, at least from the perspective of somebody submitting a VA claim. If I had to file my claim again, I would not start with my medical files. I would start with my service. Identify those times and locations that qualify for presumptive conditions. And then I would look at my medical records from the perspective of those presumptive conditions. I would ask my doctor, is it possible that what I'm experiencing is this condition? The reason I say this is because looking back on my VA claim, there were a couple of issues in my medical file that just seemed mysterious to the doctors. But those same symptoms seem pretty clearly linked to some presumptive conditions. Now, there is one additional aspect of these presumptive conditions that I think is going to affect anybody who is currently waiting on a rating decision. Since the signature of the PACT Act in 2022, the number of supplemental claims has gone up, and that has driven up the backlog. Hopefully, most of those PACT Act claims are built around presumptive conditions. Those should be adjudicated more quickly, and the backlog should diminish. What worries me is that a big chunk of those new supplemental claims might be other than presumptive conditions, and that would cause problems. I don't know what's going to happen. We're just going to have to keep an eye out. And in the meantime, watch this video to better understand the VA backlog.